Very good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of philosophy, and we're discussing the Stuart Close Philosophy, the chapter, the Potentiation Infinitesimal Dose. We were there on the topic that the relationship of the inorganic substances to the living organism, and where he tried to explain that how this infinitesimal dose develops while consuming our food, not only for us but even for the animals, how the same thing happens in the process of consumption. So whatever may be the food which is available for us is through the vegetables, and it comes from the universe, it comes from the farm, it comes in the form of nitrates, it comes in the form of proteins, it comes in the form of sulfates, phosphates, everything. But if we consume that as it is, it will be harmful either for us, or it will be not useful for us. But when it goes into the plant, first it gets potentized over there, and then it becomes a palatable, and plant themselves utilizes that for their development. It gets palatable, and when we consume that food as vegetable, it gets absorbed very easily, and which will be beneficial for us. So this is the nothing but the same process which happens with those minerals or contents of the universe. The things which are in crude form, not useful for human being, becomes useful for the human being. The process is nothing but the potentiation. Hahnemann utilized the same idea while utilizing or while doing the potentiation, and he considered the same thought that yes, if this is happening, if we make it for the medicine, and he has experimented, and after experimentation, he declared it to the world regarding the potentiation. So it is not just a thought of Hahnemann, it is the logic behind it. The open eyes or sound senses of Hahnemann work together. At the same time, intelligence of his came into the existence and ultimately reflected in the processes of potentiation. Both the methods, the trituration and succussion, are the result of scientific foundation. They are based upon the laws of biology, laws of chemistry, laws of physics, that is the laws of basic sciences in relation with the homeopathy. And because of which the methods become more scientific, and that's why when we define potentiation or potentization, we make a definition. It is a mathematico-mechanical process by which the inherent properties of the crude drug substances are aroused into the activity. And this is what the scientific aspect of it he is trying to explain. Over there, we were on page number 226, the paragraph number 3. In all these transmissions, transformations, and progressions, the operation of principle of similia is discernible. We also see the operation of law of potentiation. For each step, a degree of advance from lower to higher form or state of existence is in reality a potentiation, a development of the inherent powers and qualities of the elements. Under the transforming power of the life in the blade of grass, of the inert molecule of silica is raised from the inorganic to organic realm, and itself becomes living matter. The forces which were latent in the inorganic becomes active and radiant in organic. Gravitation, cohesion, and chemical affinity, with which held the silica in their grasp, yield to the chemistry of life. And so, when the succulent blade of grass is eaten, digested, and assimilated mm, by the sheep or ox, or even the nourishing grain or the vegetable or the fruit is assimilated by the man, the process of transformation from lower to higher is always essentially a potentiation, ruled by similia and mediated by the infinitesimal. Thus, what we call dead or inanimate matter by potentiation becomes living matter for every particle of inorganic substance assimilated by the living organism is no longer dead but alive and subject to the laws of life. So he is giving the example how the food which we consume carries a vital energy. If it carries the vital energy, it is life. It was not useful for human being in their crude form. It is as good as dead at that time because it carries only the potential energy, but it is not kinetic. And when it goes into the plant, becomes digestible, it carries the vital energy. When it is consumed, masticated by the in the mouth and then transmitted to the stomach where it is again churned, the energy gets liberated, the succussion has been happened over there and ultimately releases the energy which is called to be ingredients which are nothing but the life. They never remains inert, they remains active. And this activity is happens only because same method which Hahnemann have devised happens to be there with the human life. The thought has been inducted only because of these observations which Hahnemann utilized for the purpose of making the potentiation. And Close is giving the examples of it in order to explain how this thought of potentiation aroused in the mind of Hahnemann. In a similar way, substances which in their natural state are unassimilable by the living organism, like the and minerals or substances that are which are toxic or destructive, are by homeopathic mechanical potentiation rendered in one case soluble, homogeneous, and assimilable, and in other case not only harmless but actually beneficent for the purpose of healing when prescribed homeopathically. They become to the diseased organism what food is to the healthy organism, and that is reconstructive, in that they supply the organic need, restore the order and harmony to disordered functions, and permit a resumption of normal functioning. So what he is explaining? He is explaining that he is comparing the process of potentiation with the nutritional process. The way the inorganic substances gets into activity by the process of nutrition or digestion, the same happens with the crude drug substances. There are many crude drug substances which are poisonous in their crude form, but which becomes useful for human life in order to cure. And this happens only by the method of potentiation. And this has a scientific value. And how this has originated, he has explained the process, the logic behind that as Hahnemann have utilized. So here he has shown the close relationship of inorganic substances to the living organism, and now he turns to the scientific foundation of potentiation. How this is scientific and why this is scientific. The researchers of the modern physical science have confirmed in a remarkable manner, the old teaching of Hahnemann in regard to the divisibility of matter and power of infinite symbol in medicine. When Hahnemann first announced cures of disease by the extremely small doses of medicine, his statements were received with incredulity and ridicule. Such a course or procedure was contrary to the prevailing custom and belief. It did not avail to the point out that the cures so effected were made by single remedy instead of mixtures in common use, that the remedy for each case was selected under the guidance of new principle in medicine, and that the remedies were prepared by a new process by which their curative powers are conditionally greatly increased. Hahnemann's appeal to the medical profession to test the new method and publish results to the world was made by in active opposition. He was forbidden to practice. He was forbidden to practice and was driven from his home by relentless persecution. The opposition began at that time has never ceased, and the doctrines and practice have had to make their way against the obstacles that would have been insurmountable to any but men who were firmly convinced that they were standing for a great and precious truth. So he is explained the concept which Hahnemann have utilized first time and started explaining to the world that he has made a new method by process of potentiation where the drug substance is very much reduced, but still it carries or it increases the potency or it increases the energy inside it. No one was ready to accept his thought, and it was not possible because it was way ahead. Hahnemann was way ahead of them. So it was not easily digestible. Everyone opposed Hahnemann because everyone was materialist. Till that period, there was no question of dynamic medicine, or there was no question of dynamic thinking was there. And that's why they were opposing the Hahnemann's dynamic concept in relation with the material concept. The Hahnemann got a lot of opposition at that time. He has started, many of them have asked the Hahnemann to stop the practice. Many obstacles were there, but truth remains the same. What Hahnemann explained or utilized was not a question of his thought, it was experimented. And because of which he was damn sure whatever he is explaining to the world is truth, and it is not something which is just a conjecture. So whatever Hahnemann have explained is the ultimately result of his experimentation, and that's why the truth remains permanent. The use of infinitesimal dose in homeopathy was the outcome of experience, but as a doctrine, it has its foundation in truth embodied in the modern scientific theories of conversation, conservation, and energy, and indestructibility of the matter. So, whatever Hahnemann have explained has a scientific basis. Why it remains truth? It is not only just a truth, it was having a scientific foundation. There were laws of physics which Hahnemann have utilized. The first law was there that the matter is indestructible and infinitely divisible. This is the law of fundamental science which Hahnemann have utilized over there. Then second law, there is energy neither be created nor be destroyed. It is always present in any form in the drug substance, any substance. That also he has utilized over there. So whatever foundation is there, it is scientific. It is not having just a thought. In the doctrine of conservation of energy, physical science teaches that the sum total of energy of the universe neither diminishes nor increases, though it may assume different forms successively. Physics, in the law of conservation of matter, teaches them that matter as such is indestructible and that the total quantity of it in the universe remains the same, regardless of the innumerable transformations and permutations constantly taking place in its component elements. So these are the laws of physics, these are not laws of homeopathy. And these are the laws which Hahnemann have utilized. When he started utilizing and doing the triturations or succussions and making the medicine more and more and more and more fine, at that time he has utilized the same law of physics that matter is indestructible and infinitely divisible. So after 12th sig potency, when he prepared the potency, next potency, it was not visible by any method, but still it was present. And what Hahnemann was telling or what Hahnemann was doing was not wrong. In fact, it was the truth and based upon the scientific foundation. Second important thing, every particle of the drug substance or which is utilized for the purpose of making medicine has carries the energy. Only by pouring or applying the force, the energy is getting more and more released or it becomes more and more energized. So, these are the laws of physics which Hahnemann have tried to utilize while making the this mathematical preparation. Mathematically, no limits can be assigned to the divisibility of the matter. It is impossible to reach a division so fine as to be incapable of further subdivision. The smallest conceivable part will always contain some of the original substance and consequently some of its powers and qualities. It cannot possibly become nothing. Last line is very important. So no matter never becomes nothing. You go on making it fine and fine and fine and fine. Wherever you goes, ultimately what remains or is nothing but the same parts of the or that matter. And second thing, it carries the same properties of the same substance. So it is not zero. Practical experience with homeopathic hypotheses in the treatment of sick confirms that fundamental postulates of the science. The highest potencies ever made by Hahnemannian process of dilution or by any modification of that process have been shown to the capable of bringing about curative reaction the sick when remedy was homeopathic to the case. See what he is explaining? That whenever we treat the patients with the high potency, for example, we have treated any case of the long-standing pathology with a higher potency and patient has cured. It itself is the reality with which we can understand that your remedy has acted in the same plane where it has to act. It has produced its action at a dynamic level, and because of which it brings about a cure in the sick. Otherwise, it would have not made anything. So, this is what he is explaining the same thing over there. So, it doesn't mean that it never carries, it is only placebo, it is a remedy which has cured that pathology. Hahnemann taught over a century ago that the effect of homeopathic dose is augmented by increasing the quantity of the liquid in which the medicine is dissolved preparatory to its administration. Recent scientific study of solutions in working out in the laboratory, the theory of dissociation of molecules have verified the observation and amplified the theory of Hahnemann. So, Hahnemann's thought are now getting confirmed. He has explained it 250 years back, but now science is accepting what Hahnemann was saying. So it takes always a long time to accept the Hahnemann's concept. According to the latter theory of dissociation of molecules, a chemical, when dissolved, is dissociated into parts smaller than the atoms of which it was composed. These particles are called ions. It has been proven that the more dilute the solution, the greater the number of ions and fewer the atoms. Complete ionization and absolute dissociation are possible only in infinite dilution. The following statement was made for the author by Mr. M.J. Burby, chemist of electrical testing laboratories of New York. What he is saying, this is the scientific person. The theory of electrolytic dissociation, or simply the ionization theory, was proposed in its completed form by Arrhenius to explain the irregularities in the osmotic behavior of certain substances, notably inorganic acids, bases, and salts. The theory is briefly that, and he explains that theory, and it gives the same thought which Hahnemann have utilized while preparing the medicines. He has explained that when you prepare the medicines either in alcohol, either in water, either in solution, it releases the molecules. And those molecules or ions will be useful for the human to get stimulated. And once it is stimulated, that's all. That's the purpose which is getting solved. So Heinemann's concept of potentiation was based upon this scientific theory. Only thing is that at that time it was not digested. And that's why there was a lot of oppose to the Hahnemann. But now, modern science, in fact, science is accepting the question of ionization in the solution. And this fellow, the Burby, Mr. Burby, is explaining certain theory, and this what he says is very correct. All substances belonging to the class which in water solution conduct electricity are, upon being dissolved in the dissociating solvent, dissociated into ions. Such substances are called as electrolytes. It is to be particularly noted that the passage of electric current through such a solution is not the cause of dissociation, but rather that dissociation takes place when the substance goes into solution. And it is because the solution contains the ions that it will conduct electricity. Regarding the quantitative side of theory, it needs only be said that the degree of dissociation and ionization is a function of dilution. The greater the dilution is the greater the degree of ionization until it at infinite dilution, ionization is complete. So he is explaining the whole story of ionization. And same thing, what Hahnemann have utilized or Hahnemann have explained is based upon that. He has explained how to prepare further doses in the process of succussion and which contains or which works on the basis of this scientific foundation. Only thing was that there was not a proof in Hahnemann's mind or Hahnemann's hand, and that's why the people were not able to agree. Now people agree, yes, what Hahnemann said was correct, but it took nearly about 150 years to go. It would seem that this further, the reactivity of electrolytes in dilute solution is measured by the degree to which they are ionized. Each substance has the property of dissociating into a definite extent when the solution has been certain concentration. Thus, if equimolecular solution of hydrochloric, nitric, sulfuric and hydrofluoric acids are compared as regards to the speed of relation with the second substance, it will be found that order in which they stand in this respect will be measure of the degree to which they are ionized. It would seem from this that the velocity of all reactions between electrolytes is greater, the greater the dilution, and this is so with certain restriction. Theoretically, the relative reactivity is greatest at infinite dilution because the degree of ionization is greatest. Practically, however, there is a limit to this because after certain degree of dilution it has been reached, the actual reactivity becomes too small to be of the moment. So he is explaining science behind that how the dilution or we make the solution, how the ions gets dissociated, which carries certain charge over them. And these are the things with which you can find it out. Yes, this how this works, how it acts on the human being, because it carries certain energy, it carries certain charge in it. And this same science have been utilized by the Hahnemann while preparing the medicine. He is giving you exactly the science behind that. It should be further noted that ionization theory applies particularly to the inorganic acids, bases, and salts, and that most organic compounds are very little dissociated. And as we understand dissociation, also other solvents than water are act as a dissociating solvent, and among others may be mentioned liquid ammonia, liquid sulfur dioxide, and certain organic solvents. In chemistry, molecule is defined as smallest particle part of the compound substance that can exist separately and still remains its composition and properties. The smallest combination of atoms that will form a chemical compound. So he is explaining same theory of science, how it is utilized while making a medicine. Either a molecule or either atom, both of them carries the original properties of it, of that substance, and which works on the human being. Because of which human is stimulated against that specific inorganic substance in the form of molecule or an atom, and it produces a specific reaction. So if you make fine belladonna and we have prepared belladonna 30 and given to the patient will react to the belladonna 30 stimulus in the similar manner. It will produce a different reaction when you give the restox molecule. When you give the calcarea molecule, it will react in a different manner because the properties carried by those substances are different. And it itself is an indication that it carries properties and it carries the energy. So even though you have reached the same potency, it still carries the properties, it still carries the energy. And this infinitesimal dose, when prepared in homeopathy, has a significance, has a scientific value. So what he is explaining over there is exactly the science behind this infinitesimal dose. It's a big chapter. We have to go with this, but we have to read that. At least we must know all the concepts and explain it to the people who never believes in homeopathy. For that purpose, even though it looks little bit boring when the science comes into existence, but still we have to understand and read so that we can answer anyone. So that's all for today. Today evening we'll again meet at 8:15 with another remedy. I don't know what remedy is there. We'll definitely have a fourth year remedy. So, and that we'll discuss in today's session at 8:15. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you.